Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
From the beautiful city of Abuja, it is our pleasure today to welcome you to Money Radio on Leadership podcast. This is the national economy segment of the program, and we are discussing an interesting topic today. Can Nigeria meet a target of 1.4 million refining capacity that she has set for herself? Yes, recently an agency of government announced that the country is setting a target of 1.4 million barrels refining capacity per day in the next 5 years. How feasible is that? In the studio to discuss the issue with me is Mr. Anthony Uko. So you're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here again.
Yes, and I don't know how you manage. I don't know how you wore the same color that I'm wearing. It's somehow
Maybe you had someone spy on
maybe you have some kind of jazz that you use to spy on. You're welcome.
you. Anyway, I would say it's just it's
It's
a
coincidence.
coincidence.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
So 1.4 million barrels per day. Right now, the country is not producing anything.
Yes.
Uh, and how long has it been, first of all, since the country has not been producing anything? It's like we're importing oil or refined products
Yes.
100%. The
Of
modular
course.
refineries are there, but they're hardly producing petrol.
Petrol.
Yes. And then we have maybe it's only the boys in the creeks that are producing anything. We are not producing anything today, but the government is setting a target of 1.4 million barrels in the next 5 years. That is by 2027. How feasible is that?
Yeah. Um, it's a target, 1.4 million barrels per day, and it's for the next 5 years. Um, with the way things are going globally, with the energy transition to net zero emissions and all that. We are beginning to see a situation where many of the countries, global Western countries, are hyping the need to move away from um, the use of fossil fuels to renewables. So, as it is, it's a good thing that Nigeria has set a target for itself because if everything goes the way the West is planning it, before long, depending on other countries to get our refined products will be like putting ourselves in not taking our own
Guessing in our
destiny in
hands.
our hands,
Yeah.
allowing others to determine whether we get the products that we need to use or not. And all through for the better part of last week, in fact, from Monday to Thursday, at the Nigerian International Energy Summit, one thing that resonated there was the need for Nigeria to develop homegrown solutions in handling our energy requirements in view of what is happening globally in terms of energy transition.
Yeah.
The Western world, they want, in fact, if they could stop the use of fossil fuel right now, they would do that.
They would.
And investments are beginning to dry up. In fact, many of the organizations, for fear of sanctions, many of the investing organizations, for fear of sanctions, are not putting money into the production of fossil related products. They would rather pump in investment into renewables, anything that has to do with renewables. So with that, it becomes obvious that unless Nigeria makes become very, very strategic about meeting our own refining needs, then it may get to a point that being able to import will be difficult. So it's good now that Nigeria is taking that position to set that target, 1.4 million barrels per day refining capacity to be achieved in 5 years. I don't think it's a very tough target that can't be met if all the if all hands are on deck.
Okay. From what you've said, I want to look at our position
Yes.
from two perspectives.
Okay.
Number one, this idea of some countries have actually set a target by 2030, 2035, 2040 to completely be independent of fossil fuels.
Yeah.
I find that a bit difficult to comprehend, and I don't see the workability of it. The reason is this: unlike other energy sources like
Yes.
coal,
Mm-hmm.
coal is just one product
Yes.
and is used to generate heat of energy. That is it. So it was easy for the world to migrate from the use of coal. Of course, the world has not migrated from coal.
Completely. Yeah.
Because even the countries that we are talking about, the so-called developed countries
Mm.
that are championing this
Energy transition.
the US, China, Russia, Canada, a good number of them, a host of them, South Africa, they generate their energy mainly from coal. If it has been that difficult or this difficult
Mm-hmm.
to generate power from coal, which is a monoproduct,
Mm.
if it has been this difficult, imagine a country like, a product like fossil fuel,
Mm.
whereas from that crude oil, you get jet fuel. Are they going to find an alternative to jet fuel? They're still going to be using jet fuel.
Yeah.
Are they going to find an alternative? Okay, maybe they are finding an alternative to gasoline, which is petrol, accepted. What about diesel? Accepted. But there are other products from fossil fuel.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, about 15 products from what some experts have said. Some it may be more. So, to migrate from from the use of fossil fuel, to me, it's not going to be a 2030, 2035, 2040 thing. So I think Nigeria is still in some sort of a favorable position
Yes.
to make use of this energy source now.
Yes.
And that is the need to make sure that we refine our own fuel.
Yeah.
Now, if imagine if Nigeria were refining our own fuel right now. As of yesterday, when I checked the price of crude oil, Brent crude on the international market, national economy carried $118 per barrel. $118 per barrel for Brent crude. I think we have reached 120, if not more than 120. And people are, of course, analysts are projecting that with the crisis in Ukraine right now in Russia, whereas people are, countries are sanctioning Russia and they may soon hit Russia oil. If that happens, the price of oil may even go to as much as 180 or $200. That is where Nigeria would have made good money.
Good money.
Some people say bastard money. Sorry for using that expression on this program. But so Nigeria would have made good money. Well, it's not very late. And I think with time, if once Nigeria gets her acts right, that is refining crude oil into the different petroleum products. It will be better. Now, how feasible is that? Is what we are discussing. Instead, the the contributors of this 1.4 million projection will be Dangote, 650,000 barrels per day. Bua is building a refinery in Akwa Ibom, 200. That's 850.
Yes.
Before we come to the refineries, the government-owned refineries, let's bring in the other modular refineries that are going to constitute this 1.4 million barrels of refining capacity per day. So before we come to that, or let's come to that now. We are talking about the local refineries. We're talking about Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna. When was the last time you heard about any of these refineries with all of the billions of dollars of turnaround maintenance? When did you last heard that they contributed to Nigeria's local production?
In
Over to
fact,
you.
I was actually looking for that figure before. I was looking for that detail before we came on this program, and
Have you seen?
my search yielded no result. So it is actually we can't really say when last products were refined from these four refineries, and year on year out, the government have been sinking resources. In
Huge
fact,
resources.
huge resources. In fact, we have it data available indicates that in the last 20 years,
Okay.
$26.5 billion,
6.5
$0.5 billion
That is what
have
will
been
constitute
sunk.
our budget
Yeah,
in a
have
typical
been
year.
sunk
Into
into maintaining these moribund refineries.
And what have they added to
And
this?
year on, year in, year out, the refineries have been making losses,
Yes.
loss upon loss, and so on. And analysts, the experts have put it that with the amount that have been sunk into turnaround maintenance, the $26.5 billion is capable of
Building this
building three of such with the same capacity from the ground up,
yes.
and completing it, finishing it completely.
So let me cut you, please. How much is Dangote how much has he invested into his refinery? It started with 9, then it went to 14, but with unforeseen circumstances, it has gone to 19.5 million
Billion
billion,
billion
19.5 billion
dollars.
dollars. That is the final, or that is the last
Mm-hmm.
amount we heard.
Yes,
All things
being
being
equal.
yes.
And
Now,
that is at this time
at this time,
that the
the money,
currency
yeah,
is
has
higher
yes,
compared to when the exchange rate was like 180 to the
yes.
dollar, or even less.
You get the point. So the money that has been sunk into these refineries, those four refineries, could actually build a Dangote refinery maybe up to 2 times.
Of course,
You get the
and
point.
would have completed it long ago.
Long ago, it would have been provided or supplying this market with enough,
Within
and there would have been no reason to import.
imports.
And this Dangote refinery alone is built to supply all of Nigeria's petroleum needs. So,
And even have left for exports.
so you see, where's the hope there now that this, of course, they are supposed to, these four refineries are supposed to contribute 450,000
thousand barrels.
barrels of that
Yes,
1.4
1.4.
billion. So, with what is the hope now that we are going to have the 450,000 barrels contributed by these four refineries?
Well, with the analogy we've made now, it means that if we are hitting this target on any of the state-owned refineries, then that target is set to fail.
That is it. That's what I think.
That target is set to fail.
Because what are they going to do
Now,
that they haven't done before?
Before, in the past decades or two,
We had, I'm quoting you, 26.5 billion sunk into these four refineries, and nothing came out. So maybe with the 1.5 billion that they are going to sink into it, or they are sinking into it now, will this 1.5 billion, which has less value than what it has been before, will this 1.5 billion dollars do anything that the 26.5 billion did not do in the past? There is wahala. Let's take a short break. We'll come back. We'll discuss more about this issue. Stay tuned, listeners.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back, viewers. You're still on to Money Radio. This is the National Economist segment of the program from Leadership Podcast. In the studio, discussing an important issue with me has been Anthony Uko, and I'm your host, Case Hammond. So we are discussing the topic today. Is it feasible that Nigeria will be able to generate or will have a refining capacity of 1.4 million barrels per day in the next 5 years? Much of what we are talking about is coming from those two refiners or prospective refiners, Dangote and Bua. To be realistic, let's be realistic. In fact, one of the persons we interviewed on in the lead story of national economy today, the person of Temitaya Bello, Professor Temitaya Bello. He said he would believe such a figure, he would put faith in such a figure if it were a private sector driven initiative. That is, if those four refineries, Kaduna, Warri, and Port Harcourt, if those four refineries were
Excluded
yeah,
from this.
yes, from this mix,
Mhm.
then you would have put faith. But he said once it is a government thing, it's nobody feels responsible. A private sector driven initiative will actually have of course the man wants to make money.
Of course.
Yeah, so he will put in his best and he will make
Mhm.
sure that he doesn't incur losses.
Mhm.
But this government thing, whether you incur losses or not, you are a civil servant. Although the right now the NNPC, which is in control of those four refineries, is a private business, but government still has a stake in it.
It's still 100% owned by the federal government,
Yes,
even though it's been incorporated,
yes,
but it's still 100% owned by the federal government. So it's not yet in private hands. The PIA made it that eventually it will become there will be an infusion of private investors into it. But right now, though the NNPC has said that it wouldn't be ready to go public in the next 2 years.
that
So,
means it's still a
so
fully
it's
government
still a
thing.
fully government-owned um, oil company.
Yes. With that, can we put faith in? In fact, I spoke to another stakeholder, the person of Chinedu Okoronko, the Ipman president, he expressed confidence, some confidence that the the four refineries may be revamped to the tune that they will be able to produce 80% of their capacity at the best, at best, 80% capacity. But I still don't, personally, I still don't see anything much coming out of that. So the refineries that are the prospective privately owned refineries, I'm not talking about the modular,
Yes.
I'm talking about Bua and
Mm.
Dangote. Bua is supposed to come on board by 2024. 200,000 plus 650,000, that will make it 850,000. That is enough for the Nigerian market, plus the local refineries, the modular refineries, which do not produce petrol.
Petrol.
They produce other
Diesel.
diesel. Yeah,
And
yes.
other products.
But apart from that, they hardly produce anything much.
Yes. Well, for the modular refineries, one reason why they've not been able to, why they've not ventured into petrol, refining petrol, has been the fact that petrol is subsidized.
Okay.
Yeah. So with the price has not been considered competitive for them to be able to be able to operate profitably.
But do they have that capacity?
They could actually, a number of them are looking at going into that line with, you know, they actually welcomed the signing of the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act, with the fact that it was going to, you know, deregulate the petrol segment of the industry, whereby if the pricing is right,
Mhm.
they would be able to go into it. Like we rightly pointed out, the private sector, a private sector driven investor wants to operate, make profits, because more often than not, the resources that are committed there are not their personal monies.
Yeah, they borrow some of these funds.
They borrowed them, and they want to keep their business running, be able to service this debt and remain profitable. So with this, it was a kind of welcome development that they may be looking into the possibility of refining petrol. But of course, like we saw, the deregulation, the removal of subsidy has been stalled by another, okay, now we have like 17 months. So it means that they've had to put their decisions
On hold.
on hold.
By extension, that means Dangote refinery will also face the same problem.
I don't know how it's
because
going to.
because if fuel is going to be subsidized, from what I gather, Dangote refinery is supposed to come on stream sometime in the third quarter of this year. They say mechanically Dangote refinery is ready. I've read that in the papers.
Okay.
How true that is, I don't know, but I've read it in the papers. And maybe it's electronically that the Dangote refinery is not yet ready. But be that as it may, let's expect Dangote refinery to come on stream by the third quarter of this year, or at most
the
fourth quarter.
The fourth quarter.
When that happens, that is between October and December.
December.
When that happens, what is going to play out there? Because if the modular refineries are shy away from producing petrol, because of
the price mechanism.
Yes, the price mechanism. That means Dangote is going to face the same problem. That means what we expect from Dangote or the Dangote refinery is going to produce at a subsidized rate, because you remember this is going to be before the expiry of the 18 months.
No.
So if we are talking about this year that Dangote refinery is coming on stream, that means it's going to affect his profits, because Dangote himself has borrowed money.
Of course,
So-
he has borrowed heavily
Heavily.
for that refinery,
Mhm.
and that is this issue now brings to the fore what many stakeholders um, talked about, that all of these plans, it's like the entire plan, the entire things that the Nigerian government is setting out to do, they are not properly coordinated. There seems to be a disconnect between all the components of the things that should be done, the policies that should be put in place to present a whole picture. It's like everyone is working in silos, and then when you get to a point, you meet something, you're like, oh, we did not take this into consideration, and it stalls the entire process. That was one of the highlights of that summit, that Nigeria will need to all the authorities, all the institutions involved in the energy transition, involved in all the things, the policies, the programs that Nigeria need to put in place to ensure that the country is ready and will be able to face the new scenario head on.
Mhm.
That all the institutions need to come together and harmonize what they are doing, so that every policy will be synchronized,
Exactly.
and then the possibility of coming out with the outcome that everyone expects at the end of the day will be more feasible. But everyone operating in their own silos without bringing in everyone, it's kind of anti-productive
Yes.
at the end of the day. So that's what you've just pointed out. I think this is something that the authorities need to look into and see how the continuous subsidy regime will impact on Dangote refinery, so that we don't get there with the expectation that production is refining production is starting within the country, only to be faced with this, and maybe we end up having to import from Dangote as if it's from from outside.
Yeah,
That would be very, very painful.
it would be painful, because
Expectations are high.
yes, expectations are high. By the end of this year, if we don't see a change, and I have this hunch that um, President Buhari. No, I'm not saying that's what President Buhari did, but somehow my inner self tells me that instead of taking that bad name that Nigerians would give him, this is the man who brought trouble on us by removing fuel
Fuel
subsidy.
subsidy.
Instead of taking that blame, he decided to wait for Dangote refinery to assuage or reduce the burden
The
on
burden.
the public. Yes, so that people see immediately what their money will do for them. Mhm. What that which is being pumped into the importation of fuel will bring for them. And I think it was a nice move by President Buhari. Having said that, I don't think, and you may round up, but I don't think it is necessary. It is not of necessity that we have 1.4 million barrels of oil refined.
Yes.
If
Okay.
Dangote refinery alone, only Dangote refinery, if that refinery can supply all of Nigeria's petroleum needs, there's no need for government to come and still put its hands into, because as a matter of fact, the government also has a stake in Dangote refinery.
Dangote.
Then BUA is there to
Mhm.
supply some of the government's,
Mhm.
some of the country's needs for petroleum. So instead of pumping money into those 4 refineries that may gulp for nothing, gulp another huge sum of money.
Yes.
It's just, I think it's good that the government just leave this into private investors. Let them
Yes,
do it.
of course. I think this target was born on the fact that the speaker then said Nigeria should get to the point where it does not export crude, where all what is produced within the crude that is produced is refined within, and then the refined product exported.
It's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea.
But they should
However,
do it efficiently.
Yes, efficiently, and then government should stay out of
of this
business.
business. Yes. Having said that, let's draw the curtain on to this Money Radio. You have been on to the national economy segment of the program on Leadership Podcast. And so thank you again for being here out of your busy schedule. I know that you are busy.
Pleasure.
Mhm. Thanks to you, our producers. My thanks mainly go to you who listen to us and who follow us on this show. National economy comes up every Monday, and we are here to give you the latest in economics and finance on Money Radio. Until we meet for another bumper edition of the program, I have been your host, Case Hammond, and hopefully we will meet tomorrow for another bumper edition. Until then, have a nice day.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.